Hey, everybody, welcome to Rebellious Unknown. It's going to be an interesting day. We have a really fascinating topic to talk about today. If I can get the words out, we have a really interesting topic to talk about today. So, like I said on my last show, I don't know how many of you are following the Trump trials because there are 4 of them going on at the same time today. But this one that we're going to be talking about today involves the J6 trial. So this is all of the January 6th info. It's specifically related to Trump, not obviously there are other trials that have been going on for other people involved in the J6 trial. But I want to wait just a few minutes to let anybody get here who wants to get here. So I'm going to say hi to everybody who is here. I'm not sure if Dorothy is here, but she was here this morning. So Dorothy, hi, if you're here, and thank you so much for sharing. I did see that you did that. Hey, Fap is in the house. Hey, Bradley, what is going on? Chris, Akashi Chris from Mind Forked is here. XJ, whoop whoop. Hey, how's it going? Tim Freestone, how are you? So glad to see you here. Then bring it. I will do my best. I will do my best. Let's see. Who else do we have? Hatch 61. Hey, how's it going? Good afternoon to you as well. Helen, hi, how are you? Let's see, Helen, you're over in the UK, so it's good evening for you. How are you? All right. So, like I said, today we're going to talk about Trump, but actually we're going to talk, Trump is sort of the topic, but it's actually about you and me and millions of other people. Did you know about the search warrant involving Twitter and Trump? Well, today we are not only going to go through the search warrant, but we are also going to go through some of the court transcripts. Now, there have been several days in court that have discussed this warrant because Twitter was trying to fight it on a couple different grounds. But we're going to go through what was basically the last day in court before they did hand over the information. So we're going to go do that. So today, let's start with the warrant itself. So let me just pull that up. Oh, dang it. I had to reboot because my mic was acting up. So hold on. I had the screen already to share, but let me just pull it up again. Hold on. We go about this in a different way. Let's see. Here's the warrant. Okay. This might be the easiest way to start. And then we'll go back to the other one. Warrants, share. Okay. Is there a way to make it bigger? There we go. All right. So make sure that's sharing. Yes, it is. There we go. I think that's probably a little bit better, right? Hey, hi, Amy. This is back. Okay, so this is the United States District Court for the District of Columbia. And we're going to get, hold on, we're going to get official because I need my glasses on for this one. Hold on. Okay, so this is the actual search warrant itself, or the approval of the search warrant. But this right here is the approval. It says basically that, yep, you can serve this warrant anytime, day or night. Sometimes it's only during the daytime. And signed by Judge Beryl A. Howell, who is an interesting character, as we'll learn about in a little bit. So basically she said, yep, this warrant's good, go for it. And here's the warrant applies to information associated with the Twitter, now X, account at Real Donald Trump. Right, so it's Donald Trump's X account or Twitter account. Because I believe this was back in February. Let me just double check. Where's the date on this one? Oh, January 17th, 2023. So these were sealed and they have become unsealed, and as have the court transcripts. So it was a sealed warrant. So Donald Trump didn't even know about this warrant. Okay, so here are the things listed out in the warrant that they have the legal authority to obtain. Let's see. To the extent the information described in attachment A is within the possession. So attachment A is this one right here, basically information associated with Donald Trump's account at Twitter. Within the possession, custody, or control of Twitter, regardless of whether such information is located within or outside of the United States. Basically, we're saying wherever it's located, you got to give it to us. So here are the specifics. All business records and subscriber information in any form kept pertaining to the subject account, including A, identity and contact information, past and current, including full name, email address, physical address, date of birth, phone number, blah, 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 everything that says, yep, this is Donald Trump. Or the people who maybe were using his account for him, if he had people that were associated with accounts. All usernames, past and current, and the date and time each username was active. All associated accounts, including those linked by machine, cookie, IP address, email address, and any other account or device identifier, and all records or other information about connections with third-party websites and mobile apps. So basically what they're saying is, you know what, we said the real Donald Trump, but we want anything. We want any account that he may have opened. We need it all. So they're kind of covering their bases in that way. Length of service, how long did he have it? The devices used to log in or access the account, including all device identifiers, attributes, user agent strings, and information about network cookies, operating systems, apps. So basically they want to say, okay, was it actually Donald Trump that was using it, or were these other devices registered to other people that were using it? So they want to know everyone who was involved with the user account. It is a wide net, absolutely. So also just an FYI, I'm going to change this up a little bit because I do want to streamline things a little bit more. So at the end, if there are any like super chats, super stickers, anything like that, I will definitely give you all a shout out and a thank you for those at the end of going through all of this. And then I'll answer as many questions as I can get through at the end as well. Okay, so all advertising information, including advertising IDs, ad activity, ad topic preferences. So who's advertising with his account? IP addresses used to create, log in, and use the account. So again, they're still just trying to figure out who all had access to this account. Privacy and account settings, including change history, communications between Twitter and any person regarding the account, including contacts with support services and records of actions taken. That one is interesting. Okay, so keep in mind 1H. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Communications between Twitter and any person regarding this account. Doesn't say only the user account, anyone associated, or any person regarding the account. Now, number 2, all content, records, and other information relating to communications sent from or received by the subject account. So any information that was sent from Donald Trump's account or received by Donald Trump's account from October 2020 to January 2021, including but not limited to the content of all tweets created, drafted, favorited, or liked, or retweeted by the subject account, including all such deleted tweets and all associated multimedia metadata and logs. So basically anything he did, we want. That's they're saying you got to give it to us. The content of all direct messages sent from, received by, so that could be anyone who sent him a direct message, stored in draft form or otherwise associated with the subject account, including all attachments, multimedia, header information, metadata, yada yada. All other content, records, and other information relating to all other interactions between the subject account and other Twitter users from October 2020 to January 2021, including but not limited to. So this is everybody and anybody who is on Twitter who has kind of basically had anything to do with Donald Trump on Twitter. All users the subject account has followed, unfollowed, muted, unmuted, blocked, or unblocked. So anyone he's followed or muted, blocked, yep, etc. And all users who have followed, unfollowed, muted, unmuted, blocked, or unblocked the subject account. So if you blocked Donald Trump because you didn't want to hear, anything, you didn't want to see anything in your news feed, you're on this list. So you don't even have to like Donald Trump and follow Donald Trump to be on the list. So you can imagine how big this list is. All information from the Connect or Notifications tab for the account, including a list of Twitter users who have favorited or retweeted posts posted by the account, as well as all tweets that include the username associated with the account. So this is what they're saying. So anyone who has liked one of his tweets. Anyone who has retweeted doesn't mean that you necessarily liked it. You could have retweeted this and said, can you believe this? You're on the list. Anyone who has even used his name in their tweets, guess what? You're also on the list. So everyone and anyone. And here's what they want. All contacts and related sync information. So they want the contacts plus all of your information that is synced up to that account, all associated logs and metadata. For all other content, records, and other information relating to the use of the subject account, including but not limited to all data and information associated with the profile page, including photographs, bios, so everything he's used on his page, basically, all multimedia that he may have uploaded, all record of searches performed by Donald Trump or his account user, whoever that might have been, all location information, including all location data collected by any plugins, widgets, or tweet within location or with location service. So anywhere he tweeted from, all information about the subject account's use of Twitter's link service. This is an interesting one. They don't say exactly why they want this, but they don't have to say why. So the link service, so basically when Twitter, shortens a link, they want to know what links did he use? What links did he use that to shorten, including all longer website links as well. So basically any link that he posted, they want to know. And they want to know the number of times that each of those links was clicked upon by anyone in Twitter. Twitter is ordered to disclose the above information to the government within 10 days of issuance of this warrant, and that's redacted. So that, my friends, is the actual warrant itself. It's a big warrant, right? It's a lot of information. So that's our starting point. Okay, so this, like I said, this went, they did go through and they debated this in court several times. And that is also another interesting kind of aspect to this that we could get into at another time, where Twitter was basically saying, well, we don't know if some of these are, they fall under the presidential executive act where, it's presidential correspondence. And the court was kind of saying, well, we don't think that it is. But again, that's a whole nother issue. What we're going to look at today is how you're affected by this. But let's look at the court transcript and see what the court had to say about this themselves. Okay, so keep in mind, this is the very last day that they discussed this in court. They did go back and forth over this. And most of that in the beginning was initially talking about Trump's rights and Twitter's First Amendment rights, because they had, because the court had also told them, you can't tell Trump about this. This is, we can't have him know, because they were worried that he was going to destroy some of the information so they wouldn't be able to get it. So they were like, no. The court says, no, you can't tell him. And Twitter was like, well, he's one of our users, and we feel like you're interrupting our First Amendment rights to be able to tell him this and to give him the opportunity to debate this and to litigate against this if he feels this is a violation of his rights. So that's what a lot of the initial court dates were about. So now we're going to look at the very last one. All right, so here we are. Let me pull this up on my end. And that's not it. There we go. Okay, so like I said, this was initially sealed. Let me just make sure we're all on the same page. We are not. Hold on. I think that's still the warrant. Sorry. Hold on just a second, guys. Okay, now I'm going to share this screen. All right. Yeah, I think it's this one. Okay. Make sure we got the right one going now. Yes, we do. Okay, so this is the court transcript from the very last day. Again, these were sealed, so they have become unsealed, so we can now see exactly what they talked about in court. So this is United States District Court for the District of Columbia, case number 23-SC-31. This was on February 9th of this year. In the matter of United States and Twitter, this is regarding the warrant that the United States served to Twitter. and transcript of hearing before the Honorable Beryl A. Howell, United States District Court Chief Judge. Beryl is an interesting character. We'll touch on her in just a little bit. So we have for the United States, we've got Thomas Wyndham and Mary Dorman. You'll see Mr. Wyndham is who is going to be arguing for the United States. And for Twitter, we have Ari Holtzblatt, Whitney Russell, Benjamin A. Powell. Ari Holtzblatt is going to be doing the majority of the talking here. All right, so courtroom, blah, 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 blah. This is what we're talking about. Counsel, please come forward. Okay. Mr. Wyndham for the United States. Good morning. Mr. Holtzblatt for Twitter. Good morning. Good morning. All right. Who else is with you? Okay. So then he goes through the two other people that are with him. And then I'm not sure what this is, but I thought we were waiting for somebody. When it says the court, that's the judge. Mr. Holtzblatt. Yes, I'm sorry. Mr. Aaron Zebley entered an appearance this morning and is on his way. He's actually outside the building. He'll be joining us very shortly. So we're not waiting for anyone. Well, he's trying to get up here, but we need to wait for him. I will be presenting. I'm sorry. I got a message that the person who was supposed to be arguing today was delayed, but to begin without him. I just want to make sure the record is correct. This is the judge. I presumed it was Mr. Varhi since that was the person who argued the last time we were here earlier this week, but perhaps I misunderstood. Okay, this is a lot of conversation about something, but okay. So Mr. Holtzblatt says, no. I'm going to be presenting for Twitter today. Mr. Zebley is on the way. He'll be with us shortly. Okay, fine. Got it. Fine. Because we're not waiting. So the judge had to go through all of this. And then she's like, that's great because we're not waiting anyway. Okay. What was the point of all of that? Okay. So the judge says, as I look at this and look at the time of the warrant issuance, because remember, this was back in January, the warrant was signed. I look at how far out we are from compliance. So this is a little over a month later, I believe, and they were given 10 days initially to comply with the warrant. The representation by Twitter's counsel when we met earlier this week was that they could comply by 5 p.m. on the 7th. And there was some compliance, I think, but by the deadline. But what I understand is that Twitter hasn't given everything they're supposed to the government. So I want to find out what happened. Where are we on the compliance? Twitter, you've had a lot of time here to comply with the warrant and everything. You said you had everything prepared to turn over. So I'm a little bit concerned about where we're at. So first, we're going to hear from the government since we're here at the government's request. What is the government expecting to happen today? So Mr. Wyndham says, thank you, Your Honor. The court, other than counting up the amount of the penalty. So she's already thinking about how much are we going to charge Twitter for non-compliance with this warrant. Mr. Wyndham, yes, ma'am. A few things. First of all, the government wanted to raise this with Your Honor since it was inconsistent with what was represented in court by Twitter counsel 2 days ago. So they were in court 2 days prior. Second of all, we want compliance. That's the entire purpose of these repeated proceedings and conversations with counsel, is to get the information that the court ordered them to produce 13 days ago. How dare they? Each time we've received an email or had a conversation with counsel over the last 48 hours, we have not been left with any confidence that they've produced everything. So he's saying basically they produced some of this stuff, but they haven't given us everything. We want to know why they haven't given us everything, or that they even know the scope of the repositories of information. So we don't even know if Twitter knows how much information they actually have. We don't even have that information from them. Even this morning, when we had a phone call with them, it seemed as if they were attempting to cabin one of the requests in the warrant. So they're still trying to fight this. Twitter is still fighting us on this warrant. The only way to describe the end of the phone call after it concluded, I had felt like I'd been getting nickeled and dimed for the prior 20 minutes of the conversation. We need the material. We need it now. We needed it 13 days ago. We're tired of waiting, Judge. We need it. What the heck? What's taking these people so long? The purpose of this hearing is to impress upon counsel in a way that apparently the government cannot, that the meter is running. So on their last, I believe it was on their last, the hearing prior to this one that we're reading, they had set up a fine. So $50,000 for the first day that they didn't have all of the information that they requested. And each day after that, it would double. The fine would double. So 50,000 the first day, 100,000 the second day, 200,000, 400,000. You got it. So 50,000 accrued at 5 o'clock 2 days ago, 100,000 yesterday, 200,000 so far today. It will continue to run until Twitter completely complies with the warrant. The court says, okay, super. Let's hear from you, Mr. Holtzblatt. What does Twitter have to say for themselves? So Mr. Holtzblatt stands up. Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to address 3 things for the government. 3 things that counsel for the government just said. First, what we understood we were producing at 5 o'clock on Tuesday. Second, what we have done since then, actually 4 things, what remains, and the final item that counsel for the government mentioned about the single category, where we discovered this morning that we had a different understanding about what that category represents. Because as I think Chris had said, it was a very broad warrant, right? There was a lot. It wasn't very well defined, and I think they did that purposefully. And I think it may be, I ultimately would like the judge is like, well, look, I'm looking at attachment B, part 1. We're just going to go through it line by line, something tediously I tried to avoid at the last hearing. So it's very annoying of you lawyers to not be able to figure this stuff out. But it seems like that kind of supervision of Twitter is necessary here because apparently Twitter they're idiots. Do you have that in front of you, Mr. Holtzblatt? Yes, I do, Your Honor. Great. Let's start with number 1. All business records and subscriber information in any form kept pertaining to the subject account starting with A. Identity and contact information, past and current, including full name, email address, all the above. Has that been turned over? Your Honor, I was prepared to identify for you the items that we understand are not yet turned over. The judge says, well, it's the same way of doing it. What have you turned over? What is missing? So everything in A is turned over. It's just like, I'm annoyed with you, Mr. Holtzblatt, so we're going to do it my way regardless of what you wanted to do. The one item that I know that is not yet turned over, but is about to be turned over, is information regarding gender. Judge says, which you're still determining whether you have or not. He says, no, we've determined that we have the gender information. We spoke to the government about gender information yesterday. The email communication from the government suggested that the gender field was not necessarily the most pressing of information, but we have it gathered. And I think as we're producing the gender field as we speak, we're giving them the gender info. Great. Court says, everything else in A, I'm understanding that you said has been turned over. Is that a correct understanding, Mr. Holtzblatt? Yes, that's my understanding, Judge. Great. B, do I have to read it to you or can you read it yourself? Really, Judge? Okay, Mr. Holtzblatt says, Your Honor, can you bear with me for 1 second? So he goes and he and the Twitter counsel, they confer. Your Honor, we have turned over information in all categories in B, with one exception that we don't possess in the manner in which it is described in B. And so we're attempting to turn over what we do have. Well, what is that precisely? The judge wants to know. All associated accounts, parentheses, including those linked by machine, cookie, IP address, email, everything, that's not associated accounts, as I understand it. It's not a category of information that exists within our system. So like what he's saying is we don't have that, like we don't have that term, so we don't have that specific information already gathered together. So we're attempting to create that for you, but it's not. Well, what is the proxy you're gathering that for? Twitter. Talk again. Is there a reason why Ms. Russell just has to sit there as opposed to speaking, since she seems to be the one who knows more? You idiot. No, Your Honor, we've collectively gathered the information about the answers. I'm just want to confirm the information because I don't want to make an incorrect representation to Your Honor. The judge says, of course not. We've already been through that. Okay. So you're still figuring out all the associated information in 1B. How long will that take you to figure it out, produce it, collect it, and produce it? She really wants it produced twice. Mr. Holtzblatt, well, Your Honor, the issue, Your Honor, is there isn't a category of that. Basically, what I just told you, there isn't that. So we're trying to manually ascertain the link between the accounts. It's going to take us a long time. We've got to go through all this information. So it's not information that we already have. We're going to have to go through manually and create that information for you. So it's taking a little bit of time. So what we're trying to do is I would say, because it's not information. Okay. Judge says, I'm going to do this in a way that makes sense on the record as we're talking about things. Mr. Wyndham, counsel for the government, with respect to the all associated accounts, has the government obtained information like that before from Twitter, if you know? Mr. Wyndham's like, I don't know, Judge. I can't make that representation with respect to Twitter. With any number of other electronic communication providers, they keep that information in a consistent form to the extent that Twitter does not. It should be a simple process. If you have cookies associated with an account, basically he's like, they should have this. I don't know, but I don't know. I don't work for Twitter, so I'm not sure. Control F, that seems easy enough, right? Just Control F through your system. I mean, clearly that's what you got to do. But then he says, I don't profess to be a technical technological wizard. The Control F thing works every time, though, Your Honor. But it doesn't seem to be a complex issue. And the court says, and all associated, Mr. Holtzblatt says, Your Honor, the court, excuse me, Mr. Wyndham, you escaped too fast. Come here. He comes back. Yes. Sorry, ma'am. All associated accounts information is helpful and useful for what reason? Why do you need this information? It is, as Mr. Wyndham says, as explained more fully in the warrant, but for these purposes, it's a useful tool in identifying what other accounts are being used by the same user or by the same device. So basically, it's gonna tell us if he has any other accounts. We need that information to know if he has other accounts that he's using other than the real Donald Trump. And oftentimes, in any number of cases, user attribution is important. And if there are other accounts that a user is using, that is very important to the government's investigation. We need to know everything. We got to know everything that he said on Twitter, everything that anything had to do with the real Donald Trump or associated accounts. We got to know. Judges, okay, super. Mr. Holtzblatt, okay, I've been sitting here waiting. Your Honor, all providers are not the same. And it is, I believe, it is correct that other providers possess this information in this form. The warrant in section 1 of the warrant is a BSI request for basic subscriber information. It is therefore asking for information that exists, not information that needs to be created. So he's saying the way it's worded in the warrant is we want the information that exists in your database. He's saying it didn't say that you guys needed the information that hasn't already been collected that we now would manually need to go back to collect. So he's saying this is technicality here, but a big technicality, if you think about it on Twitter's part, that's a lot of work for them to have to do. What I understand the government to be asking, and we are trying to be cooperative in our communications with the government, have aimed at attempting to assist the government, is for us to create information that does not exist, as opposed to produce information that does exist. We're trying to work with the government. But in terms of compliance with the warrant, the creation of BSI, basic subscriber information, that does not exist, I think, is beyond the scope of the warrant. So he's saying, you guys didn't ask for that. That's not specified. So can we really be held to that? The judge says, well, it's business records and subscriber information in any form kept. You're saying because of the word kept, you don't have that information as a business record that you maintain? And Mr. Holtzblatt says, yeah, that's right. If the records is linked, if the linkage between accounts, which is what we understand this category to be referring to, is not a piece of information that we keep, then technically it's not a business record that we would ordinarily produce. What I understand the government to be asking is for us to analyze our data as opposed to produce existing data. And we're trying to work with the government in that respect, but that is the reason that is not something that is a different category of information. Judge says, all right, super, wonderful. 1C, length of service, has that been produced? Mr. Holtzblatt, yep, we've produced it, including start date. I don't know the answer to the rest of 1C. Judge, Ms. Russell, do you know the answer? Okay, Twitter lawyers talking again. Mr. Holtzblatt comes back. We have produced everything, but there is no credit card or bank account number information associated with the account. Judge is like, really? Then how does somebody pay for their Twitter account? And Mr. Holtzblatt is confused, as we all would be, the Twitter services, or identify themselves. The judge says that's just one way to identify yourself as an account user. You don't have to provide that information to use a Twitter account. Mr. Holtzblatt, holding back a smile, says, yeah, that's right, Your Honor. Twitter is free. They don't need to give us a credit card. Judge, all right, great, wonderful. D, yes, we produced that. E, we produced that. F, yep. G, yep. H, yep. H. This is the source of our divergence of understanding with the government that we discussed with the government this morning. Until we had a discussion this morning, we didn't understand how. We had a different understanding of what 1H referred to. And remember, that was what we went back to before when I said, remember this, because we're going to discuss it. And if Your Honor will permit, I can explain. The judge says, well, for purposes of the record, H is communications between Twitter and any person regarding the account, including contacts with support services and records of actions taken. It seems pretty plain on its face. Not really. Have you reached an understanding now with the government as to the scope? Mr. Holtzblatt says no, because it's not as plain on its face as you seem to think it is. We've attempted and would like to continue to attempt to reach an understanding with the government as to the scope, if Your Honor would permit. Judge says, okay, I'm going to dictate the scope right now. I'm going to tell you the way it is. All communications that Twitter had with any person regarding this account, including any contacts with support services and records of actions taken. Is that clear? Ding dong. Mr. Holtzblatt says, well, Your Honor. The judge says, what do you understand? What don't you understand about what I just said? Like, how are you so stupid? Mr. Holtzblatt, well, we understand 1H to refer to basic subscriber information because it appears in section 1 of the warrant. Judge says, look, I think it speaks for itself, and it's not just basic subscriber information. It is what it says. Thanks for the clarification, Judge. So have there been communications between Twitter and any person regarding this account? And given the fact that it was turned off at one point and then turned back on again, one would think there would be a lot of communications. All of those communications would be included. Where are you puzzled as a company? Why is this so confusing to you people? Mr. Holtzblatt said, this is where we are puzzled, Your Honor. 1H appears in section 1 of the warrant, which otherwise refers, every other category in section 1 refers to basic subscriber information. The court says, forget what you think this category is. Just you don't even know. Just forget it. It's all business records and subscriber information in any form kept pertaining to the subject account. So any communication between Twitter and anybody else regarding the account, if it's kept, it's communications regarding the account and subject to that paragraph. Mr. Holtzblatt says, okay, well, we had understood this category to be defined by the including clause here, which says contacts with support services and records of actions taken. We've searched for that information and are in the process of producing just, I think, 2 records. What the government explained, and the judge said, well, that's just including contacts. Including does not mean only limited to. Including means including, but any other communications as well. Mr. Holtzblatt says, well, we understand that is how the government communicated to us their understanding of this clause today because it appears in the basic subscriber information section. So the government agrees with what I have just read to you, that this is what the scope is. Mr. Holtzblatt, well, so we have attempted to conduct searches today in light of the conversation we had with the government to understand the scope of this. So basically he's saying we're trying to figure out what exactly you're asking us here, because if you're asking about any communication regarding this account with, what is it? Oh my gosh, support services. It might be a lot. It might be a lot, Judge. What we found is, based on certain types of searches, we're talking about millions of emails that include, for example, real Donald Trump. So he's saying we went in, we did a search with contact services that simply had the term real Donald Trump, and it came back with millions of emails. Is that what you want? That is dramatically broader than the scope of information we understood would be covered by this category. And what we said to the government, and the court judge is like, why don't you explain that more? Back it up, Mr. Holtzblatt. He says, why don't I explain what we understood it to mean, or what no, I understand you thought it was limited to 2 records with support services, and that's clearly not the full scope of what is covered in H. So based on what the plain text of H means, she's like, I got to spell it out for you. And you just mentioned, you made reference to millions of emails. What would the response mean to the plain text of this? Mr. Holtzblatt, so if what the government believes we need to produce for this category, and we're prepared to be as cooperative as we can with what the government is doing, the government this morning communicated to us that they were most interested in communications between government officials and Twitter regarding the subject account as captured by this. So he's like, so that's something that's completely different. I didn't say that in the search warrant. So we're just trying to figure out what the heck they want here. So if that's what we're to produce, which is not what we understood was covered by this category until the conversation this morning, then what we would normally do for that kind of communication production would be to meet and confer with the government, or if we were in civil litigation with the opposing party, identify search terms, potentially custodians that would produce a reasonable set of records that we can review, and then produce an order to produce a manageable amount of information. He's like, this is a lot of info you're asking for here, and we need to identify like which search terms exactly do you want us to look up. So that's what we proposed to the government this morning, is that we meet and confer and try to hash this out a little bit more to see what would be the most effective at narrowing down, because do you really want millions of emails? As I said, when we did a search for simply the keyword @real Donald Trump on emails within the Twitter system, it produced millions of hits. I think there would be other ways of constructing a search that would produce an appropriate scoped search for this. There's going to be a better way to do this. This is a lot of information, and I don't know that this is exactly what you guys want, is what he's trying to say. The judge says, and those millions of hits consist of people concerned about Twitter turning off the account. Is that why it was millions? Why would it be millions? Clearly, this judge does not use Twitter. Mr. Holtzblatt said, well, that's with only the search term @real Donald Trump. So that's obviously broader than what Your Honor just said. H says communications between Twitter and any person regarding the account. To give meaning to that and to be responsive to the government and what they are most interested in with respect to this category, we proposed and would still propose that we meet and confer and understand what a set of search terms would be. He's basically like, if we just use @real Donald Trump as a search term, you're going to get so much information. Like, is that really what you need? And so the judge says, Mr. Holtzblatt, why are there a million emails? Why are there a million emails? From whom? And Mr. Holtzblatt says, well, within the Twitter email system, it's not limited to emails between people outside of the Twitter set of employees and Twitter itself. So, for example, one way of addressing this category would be to limit our search to, that was from 2006 to the present. So is there no date limitation within category 1, which is another reason we understand it to be BSI information? What would help narrow this down would be to impose a date limitation. So, do you want it from a certain time to a certain time instead of kind of from when the account was set up until now? So if the government is interested in specific communications from government officials, then we can do to from .gov. Okay, please sit down. I've had enough. I don't want to listen to you. Mr. Wyndham, do you really need that from 2006 to the present? On H, Mr. Wyndham's like, I don't know, this is the first time I've heard a complaint about a date limitation on H. The answer is no, I don't need it from 2006 forward. If we were to pick a date right now, I would say October 1st of 2020 through January 20th of 2021, which is consistent with 1F in the warrant. But this information about, what it is that we say that we're most specifically interested in, I didn't represent that we were most interested in communications between government officials and Twitter regarding that. I don't know where Mr. Holtzblatt is getting that. We never said that. We did point out that, much as Your Honor did just now, because apparently, as we all agree, they're idiots. It seemed beyond comprehension that there weren't communications regarding the account when it was suspended and terminated. But that doesn't mean government officials, at least cabin to that. It can mean campaign officials. It can mean anybody acting on behalf of the user account or the user of the account himself. So the judge says, okay, wait. So I think I'm getting this. So any person regarding the account is broader than what you just said, though, Mr. Wyndham. Any person regarding the account is quite broad. It could be all of the complaints of all of the Trump supporters out in the world saying, what do you do in Twitter? So I take it from what you just said that you're interested only in rather a person who was the subscriber or user of the account on behalf of that person regarding the account. So anybody who was either Donald Trump himself or anybody who was assigned to use that account for him. That's what you're asking. Yes, ma'am. An agent thereof. Okay, great. How long, with that clarification, Mr. Holtzblatt, how long will it take Twitter between with the date limitation and the limitation to any person to produce records? Your Honor, I just want to make sure I understand the limitation. Mr. Holtzblatt said, yeah, there's been a lot of back and forth here, so let's make sure we got this straight. There are 2 additional limitations that are being placed on 1H. One is that it's to be limited by date from October 1st, 2020 to January 20th, 2021. Is that correct? Or by the end of January? Yeah. January 20th, 2021. Great. January 20th, 2021. And that individuals covered would be only the owner of the account or an agent of the owner of the account for communications. Okay, let me talk to Twitter, find out how long it will take, but I can represent to the court within an hour of today's hearing. I'll be able to provide an estimate. My hope will be that I'll be able to produce today that information, but I don't feel like I can make a representation without talking to Twitter. Judge, great. All right, super. Is that sufficient? Subscriber or agent of the user of the account? The government says, yep. With the qualifications that I can't know the universe of who these agents or putative agents may be. Twitter says, well, how is Twitter going to know that? Mr. Wyndham, it would be beyond all comprehension to imagine that with this account, there's not a file known within the general counsel's office or some other liaison office within Twitter regarding the account with everything that transpired during the relevant time periods. I can't believe that they wouldn't know who's using a presidential account. So, and judge as well, we'll see how that goes, because hopefully I don't want to see you all here again. I'm tired of your faces. I'm sure none of you want to be here again. All right, now we're on to number 2, which is, Mr. Holtzblatt, just on the agents, Your Honor. One category that I could propose is the representatives of, that subject to the account assigned to be responsible for all presidential records with respect to the archivist, blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're going to clarify this a little bit more. It's just some of the agents. Yes, okay. when the account was set up, was there communication from the person or persons who set up the account with Twitter as to who could access it? And Mr. Holtzblatt's like, well, that was back in 2006. There's lots that happened since 2006 and 2020. I mean, he became president. You might have heard this. So probably a lot happened during that time as to who was using his account. But we don't keep dossiers on users in that sense. But we have emails. We can try to find names and everything. So they say we have a name associated with an email that's redacted, so we don't know who that is. I think we can look at the NARA, which is the National Archives Records Association, the individuals who are assigned to be the agents for the account, and expand it. Yep. Great. Super. Mr. Wyndham, I don't know what else they can do. Mr. Wyndham's like, well, Your Honor, that's a starting point. We can add names to the extent we think are appropriate. Okay, so they're still going back and forth about this. Who was using the account, basically. Okay, the judge says, we're on to 2A. Mr. Holtzblatt, thank you, Your Honor. Judge, and for the purposes of the records, so we're all clear, 2 states that the warrant demands all content, records, and other information relating to communications sent from or received by the subject account from October 2020 to January 2021, including but not limited to A, content of all tweets created, drafted, favorited, liked, or retweeted by the subject account, including all such deleted tweets and all associated multimedia, metadata, and logs. Has that been produced? Mr. Holtzblatt, yes, Your Honor. We have. You can stop and just say yes if it's been produced. If there's an exception, Mr. Holtzblatt, it's more complicated than that. So I was going to explain. Okay, super. That's unfortunate. Go ahead. Mr. Holtzblatt says at 5 p.m. on February 7th, I think that was our day, we produced all data in this category that was in the standard production tools of Twitter. We communicated with the government on February 8th that there were prior preservations of the account that are not within Twitter's standard production tools, and that would therefore require engineering to obtain that information. We asked the government whether it wished us to undertake that effort, and the government confirmed that it did, and we have since then. When we produced on February 7th, we indicated to the government in our production letter that there was potentially deleted data that might exist, which is what would be found in prior preservations, but that would require additional engineering efforts. And so at 2 a.m. last night, or this morning, Twitter produced additional information from these prior preservations that fall within category 2A. There are, of course, like, whoa, wait a second. When you say prior preservations, what the heck are you talking about? Prior litigation holds of some kind, or that you had a stash or a cache of preserved data sitting in different places? What the heck are you talking about? Mr. Holtzblatt says, well, I'm referring with respect to this particular account. It's a presidential account. It's a presidential account. I'm referring to preservations from 2 specific dates. There is a preservation that was made. So basically, we took all this information and we put it somewhere, including the subject account covering January 3rd to January 9th, 2020. Wonder why those dates. There's a second preservation of this that includes this account that covers January 11th to 12th, 2021. Those are collections of data that it's not coterminous within the categories that would exist. So it's not within the boundaries of the category that would exist in the active account right now. And that's data that does not exist within a production environment. So it's not just data that we can give you, right? We have to go back and get these through other means. So we asked the government if they wanted us to undertake these efforts. We had an engineer working through the night. He was working so hard. You don't understand, Judge. He was working very, very hard. After the government asked us to undertake these efforts at 2 a.m. in the morning with a lot of coffee, we produced additional information that came from these preservations. There are 2 categories of information that, actually, I'm sorry, three categories of information that we're still working to produce because of the engineering challenges. So it's not as easy as you people think it is. One of these categories is the list of, I'm not sure, this is from 2A, but for the purposes of coherence. And so anything you see where I have put in a red square is because this is information that's helpful or information that is pertinent to all of us. For the purposes of coherence, it would be helpful for me to describe it now because it connects to this preservation, that is followers, a list of followers for this account that were contained within the January 11th and 12th through prior preservation. So they want to know who were his followers. Well, okay, they're also they're going through and prosecuting people associated with January 6th. So Why do they want his followers? It's a conundrum. We have segregated that information. It is complicated and a large set of information. We're unable to deliver it in the manner that we normally deliver information to law enforcement because he had millions of followers, which is to send a token. We believe right now it would require physical media to put that information on and to hand it over to the government. So basically, we need something. We need to figure out how you want us to go about doing it. We've segregated the information. We just need a tool to produce it that works for the government. So the court says, so this is really just a list of followers attached to the preserved account from January 11th through the 12th. Excuse me. Mr. Holtzblatt said that's this particular, there are two others that I need to address, but that's this particular one I'm addressing. That's correct. Great. Judge says, okay, category 2 of the 3. As I mentioned, Your Honor, there were 2 prior preservations, and then there is the current production tools. In 2 of the 3 of those sets, the January 3rd through 9th and the current one, we have produced the tweets and related tweet information for the account. In the January 11th and 12th prior preservation, the way the tweet and tweet related information is stored goes all the way back to 2006. We don't have a warrant that is contents of user communications. We don't have a warrant that would permit us to produce the entirety of that information. So what we have is a tool that we refer to as a redaction tool or a trimming tool. So basically we can go through and kind of trim this out. It takes a long time. It takes a long time, and including like for this particular account, given the time frame, he talks a lot. He likes to tweet a lot. So we're trying our best to do it. We're underway with that effort. But the second piece of information that we're working on producing but have not yet produced is the tweets for the January 11th to 12th prior preservation for the subject account as we undergo the trimming process. So in other words, it's a lot of work. We're working on it and we're doing our best to get it to you, but it's a lot. It's not as easy as just click, here you go. These were the tweets from this time period. Judge says, okay, super. How long will it take you to do that trimming process? And Mr. Holtzblatt says, I'm helpful. We'll be able to finish it today. I don't know that we'll be able to finish it today. What I would propose to the government, what we have proposed, and what we would propose again, as we've already said this several times, is that we provide updates this afternoon on where we are with that engineering process. We are working, as I think evidenced by having an engineer come in overnight, drinking tons and tons of coffee to make it through and produce things at 2 a.m., work with this tool through the night. We're working diligently. Can't you see this? We're working very diligently to try and produce this information that you people think is so simple to get. We've produced this category of information for 2 of the 3 repositories, and we're working on this last one. The judge says, okay, and these tweets in the preserved data set are from January 11th through 12th are different from the ones that you currently have in the account? Mr. Holtzblatt says, that's a great question, Your Honor. Thanks, Judge. Thanks for asking. So now I can go in and explain that. So they're probably not different, and they're certainly not in any large sense different. It is possible that between when the account was suspended on January 8th, which is before this preservation occurred, and then when it was reinstated recently, it is conceivable that after it was reinstated, someone that had access to the account deleted some of the tweets. If that happened, they would be present in the January 11th and 12th, but not in the current set of tweets that is associated with the account. I don't know. It may be, but look, I just don't know. Judge says, okay, great. I understand. The third category of information that you're still working on, Mr. Holtzblatt, the third category is something called fleets with an F. I'll be honest with you, Your Honor, until this morning, I didn't know that was a content category that existed. I didn't know either. Did you guys know that? I'm a Twitter user and have worked with Twitter for a long time, and that was not something I was aware of. But we are collecting that from January 11th through 12th production set, and only that set. And it presents, I believe, a similar problem of having to trim it down. So we're working on that. The judge is like, okay, just humor me. What is a fleet? Mr. Holtzblatt says it's similar to tweets, and I don't know more than that, Your Honor. The court's like, judge, well, you don't use fleets, even though he already said that he didn't know what they were. So I'm assuming he doesn't use them. No, Your Honor, I had not heard of fleets until this morning. And what fleet used on, and was fleet used on this account? And Mr. Holtzblatt, it's a vanishing tweet. The judge, a vanishing tweet. I guess fleet, that makes sense. Fleeting. Oh, okay, super. The judge says, so it's a vanishing tweet. And do you know whether that vanishing tweet or fleet functionally, it sounds like a Dr. Seuss book. The vanishing tweet or fleet functionally was active on this account. And are you able to tell that, Mr. Holtzblatt? I don't know. As I stand here now, whether it was, if there is data, if there is fleet data in the prior preservation on the 11th and 12th, then that would be would be active and it would be correspond to. It's where we're working. We're looking into it. Judge says, okay, so let me interrupt you for a second. Mr. Wyndham, counsel for the government, of these three categories, is the government particularly interested in category number 1, this list of followers for the account from January 11th through 12th? Yes, Your Honor. So that's what they want the most, is who was following him. My question is, why do they want that information? The answer is going to be yes for all three. I have some additional information that may be of assistance. This is the perfect example of why it was imperative that we come before Your Honor. Twitter counsel has just mentioned 2 things we'd never heard of before in our calls. She's saying we talked about this stuff, but we didn't. What we were told was that there was one preservation done of the entire history of the account on January 11th. This is the first time we were hearing about another preservation between January 3rd and 9th. Second, I've never heard of fleets in part of any discussion that we've had. I don't know if that is information in this count. It may or may not be. Still will be relevant. It will still be responsive. So you still got to give them to us. Judge says, well, it seems to me that that's a functionality you would probably understand from the 1C types of services utilized. Yeah. Okay. So let's get into some technicalities. They're talking about the preservation. What about the deleted tweets? We know with certainty there were deleted tweets on January 6th. Twitter said that the president had to delete those in order to reinstate his account from suspension. We do not know if those deleted tweets are part of what we got from this year's preservation versus either of the two. So that's why, it'd be good for us to go through those. It might have those. With his current account doesn't have them because they were deleted. So it's not clear to us whether these preservations were made pursuant to a federal order or just for internal reasons. But in any event, so counsel for the government is saying, we don't really know why they did these, what they're calling preservations to the account. Was there a federal order for them to do them, or did they just do them themselves for maybe liability reasons? We don't really know. But regardless, we want all of the information. And all of the problems they say they're encountering and redacting and going back and looking at things. We're 23 days from the date that the court entered an order, and they're just starting to learn about things now. Judge says, okay, so were these, I didn't pursue the preservation orders, and why were they in place? Presuming that they were government orders, and you might already know about those, but were these government preservation requests under the Stored Communications Act? Mr. Holzblatt says, so we don't believe they were, but individuals who worked at Twitter don't work there anymore, who were involved with this. So basically, we don't really know. Okay. Judge, doesn't Twitter keep track of why they're preserving data? Your Honor, this particular time frame, court, like which order, for how long, and so on. So I don't know. Yes. Does Twitter keep track of why it's preserving data and pursuant to which order? Mr. Holzblatt says, so I don't know. I have 2 answers, Your Honor. As a general matter, I don't know the answer to this question. In this particular instance, we do not have a record of a government request that corresponds to either of these 2 preservations. But like we said, the people who worked there at that time no longer work for Twitter. Judge, interesting. Okay. All right. So basically we don't really know. Judge says, okay, all right. And let me just go back 1 second, just make sure my notes are complete. For category 1, the list of followers, did you tell me what you think, when you think that is going to be produced? Mr. Holzblatt says, again, as we stated before, we need the government's help with this. We have it ready to go. It's just simply a question of how to do it. Judge, he just needs to know where to do it. Mr. What's his face? Government prosecutor. Mr. Holzblatt, if the government would like us to deliver a hard drive to the FBI office in San Francisco, we can do it today. So the list of his followers can be given to the FBI office in San Francisco today, if that's what you would like. If they would like us to do it on an FTP site where they can provide us an FTP link, we can do it today. We got it. We just need to know how you want us to do it. Okay, Mr. Wyndham, on that issue, I'm advised that there is an FTP link in their email inbox right now. Super duper, Judge, or Mr. Holzblatt says, get right on it. Court, okay, so that can start now. With respect to 2, the time frame is possibly today, possibly tomorrow. No promises on that, but you are going to keep the government updated on the status of 2. And for the fleets, what is your time frame? Okay, it's in the same category. We'll hopefully have it today. I can commit. We'll let them know this afternoon. We're working around the clock, so we'll let them know. Okay, so you're going to give Mr. Wyndham and Ms. Dorman an update on both 2 and 3. Let's say by 4 p.m. today, if you haven't delivered anything by then. Sounds good, Your Honor. Judge says, okay, let's move on to B. The content of all direct messages, the DMs, sent from, received by, stored in draft form, or in otherwise associated with a subject account, including attachments, multimedia, header information, metadata, and logs. So any DMs, or in otherwise associated with a subject account, including. So I'm not sure if that means, this is me saying, I'm not sure if that means if anybody mentioned him in their DMs, it's not particularly clear, or if it's specifically DMs sent from and received by Donald Trump's account. So let's see. Am I understanding correctly, Mr. Holtzblatt, that has been produced to the extent it's subject to your standard production tool, but to the extent that this data falls into you have also produced it. That is, happily, that was one of the things that our engineers were able to pull at 2 a.m. Remember, working very hard. And that included deleted direct messages, and not just non-deleted, but also deleted direct messages. Great, Judge says. And then 3, content, which for the record's clarity, 3 asked for all content records and other information relating to all other interactions between the subject account and other Twitter users from October 20th to January 2021, including but not limited to, this is where we get into A, users the subject account has followed, unfollowed, muted, unmuted, blocked, or unblocked, and all users who have followed, unfollowed, muted, unmuted, blocked, or unblocked the subject account. So even if you muted his notifications, guess what? You're on the FBI list. Do you want to give me the status of that? Mr. Holtzblatt says, so the one category that's not produced from that is this physical media. I guess we can do that through the FTP site. It's in my email box, or which is the category 1 that you have referred to before and you're ready to produce today. Yep, we're ready to produce that today. Got it. Via the FTP site mechanism. B, all information from the Connect or Notifications tab for the account, including all lists of Twitter users who have favorited or retweeted tweets posted by the accounts, as well as all tweets that include the username associated with the account, i.e. mentions or replies. So if you've even mentioned at real Donald Trump in your tweets, you're also on the list. Congrats. Welcome to the club. Mr. Holtzblatt, so Your Honor, this is a category we have not produced, and I want to explain why. The items in 3 are all date limited. This is not a category information that is contained within the prior information. Basically, it's like you're asking us to go through everybody on Twitter and find out this information, like anyone who's even like looked at, thought of, blocked, unblocked, pondered upon real Donald Trump. You want all of that data for everybody in the Twitter universe. This is dynamic information. So basically he's saying there's no date range. So it doesn't say that it stops. So every single day it's going to be different. There are going to be more people that are going to be added to this list. So we don't have a date range. So that was a difficult one. It's not specific enough for us to give you. We were trying to figure out how to do this. So the judge is meaning, okay, so you don't have a way to put a time frame on it. That's correct, Your Honor. It is information that because it's dynamic, whatever is in the account today is not what was in the account at the time, at the relevant time frame. Judge is like, I see. So I don't know if this is important to the government or not. Mr. Holtzblatt says, if it is, we have to come up with a different solution. I don't think we actually can. I don't think we're permitted to produce what we have today. Judge says, okay, well, let me just, Mr. Wyndham, do you want to think about that, or do you want to respond? Do you think Mr. Zebley is standing outside the locked door? Poor Mr. Zebley. Everybody forgot about him. Remember the guy at the beginning? They were all talking about like, hey, isn't Mr. Zebley supposed to be here? Mr. Holtzblatt says, I think there's a chance he's there. Judge says, great. Could you check? Poor Mr. Zebley. She agrees. Should I wait, Your Honor, or proceed? Proceed. In my chambers, we wait for no man. Mr. Wyndham says, thank you. Your Honor, I mean, the short answer is, of course, it's important to us. Of course, we want to know everybody who's ever mentioned Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form on Twitter or X. Just by PC for it to be in the warrant, and Your Honor signed a warrant with this in it. I don't understand. I just don't understand the explanation that was given to us as to what exists or does not exist. Sounds like they have more information than is responsive, so there can be an overproduction of material. Honestly, I'm not clear what they're saying, nor do I understand. I don't understand the technology behind it. So if they want to explain further, if they want to talk to me offline, that's fine. The bottom line, judge says, I'm gonna let you guys talk about this outside of the courtroom. Like, I can't. Great, thanks, Your Honor. Judge says, because I think what I'm understanding from Twitter is that I'm not a Twitter user. Most judges are not. We're above Twitter. The connector notifications tab, I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I do understand lists of Twitter used to have favorited or retweeted tweets posted by the account. As I understand what Twitter is saying, it's just a mass of data that's not segregated or segregatable, I would think. But anyways, by data frame, by a time frame. So I think that they're having trouble figuring out how to do that. And then the last part of this is all tweets that include the username associated with the account. That could be a lot of data. So I think you need to talk to them about how to refine that. So basically, again, even the judge is like, this is like, you're asking for every single person who has ever mentioned a real Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form in their tweets. Mr. Holzblatt says, thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for actually seeing that it's a lot of data and we need more clarification on that. Judge says, C, all contacts and related sync information produced. Yep, we already did that. Okay, all associated logs and metadata produced. Yep. 4, for the record, reads, all other content records and other information related to the use of the subject account, including but not limited to A, all data and information associated with the profile page, including photographs, bios, profile backgrounds, and themes. Has that been produced? Yep. B, multimedia uploaded to or otherwise associated with the subject account. Has that been produced? With one exception, yes. Exception is that there is tweet media, which are also associated with tweets. So on January 11th, again, the repository, we got to trim that all out again. Super duper, judge says. Okay, C, all records of searches performed by the subject account. Has that been produced, Mr. Holzblatt? We have produced saved searches. We're in the process of producing actual search queries, which can be produced today. Judge says today. Mr. Holzblatt says it may have been included in the earlier production. I don't know the answer to that. We're producing additional information of actual search queries today. Fantastic. D, all location information. I want to know everywhere that anyone who used that account was at. Yep, we produced that. It's not something we normally have, so maybe a smaller null set, but to the extent we have it, we gave it to him. Great. Judge. E, information about the subject account's use of Twitter links. So this is where we were talking about before, links, the service that shortens the links, how many times a link was clicked on. Mr. Holzblatt says, basically, to paraphrase, yeah, we have not produced this information because we're not exactly sure about the number of times a link has clicked on. We don't know that Twitter actually has that information. The websites themselves that the links pertain to would most likely have that information, but we just don't know, that Twitter has that information. And he says, okay. So C. And they're talking about someone else. I think it was a former lawyer. Still talking about the links. We're trying to produce it today. We'll basically update the government on whether or not we can give it to them today or the time frame on that. Okay. So if the account user used the link service, blah, 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 blah. Okay. This is where they're talking about who actually would know how many times that link was clicked on. They talk about it for quite a while. Okay. And then Mr. Wyndham, the counsel for the government, says, well, they're saying that they don't think they have this, but we have an affidavit that says that they do. In the affidavit, Mr. Wyndham says, ma'am, the judge says, this is in the affidavit. Mr. Wyndham, yes, ma'am, which is currently sealed. Twitter hasn't seen it. So what's interesting about this case is that Twitter, there are aspects to the warrant, so exhibits and affidavits, et cetera, and anything around it that were sealed. So even Twitter can't see them. They just get the actual search warrant. So Mr. Wyndham is talking about a sealed affidavit. So Twitter hasn't seen this. And he says there's a line that is a statement of fact responsive to your question. The judge says, what a privilege to. Mr. Wyndham cuts her off. According to the government's information, Twitter tracks how many times these shortened links are clicked. Period, full stop. Judge says, well, we'll find out if that representation in the affidavit is correct, but that is certainly information that the government has. The government has been living and working and obtaining information from Twitter since its existence, probably. So they have experience before they put that in the affidavit. Perhaps they can help counsel in communicating with Twitter. Mr. Holzblatt says, thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate that. All right. So 4 p.m. update to the government today. Yes, Mr. Holzblatt? Yes, Your Honor. All right. I think that's it for what hasn't been produced in time frame for production. It's clear to me that Twitter didn't comport or comply with the deadline by 5 p.m. on February 7th, because it's February 9th now when they're discussing this, and is working hard to do so now. So that's good news. What's bad news is that I'm still going to be fining you. Hopefully the government will confer with Twitter and everybody's the same way of counting the days. 50,000 a day is pretty big, easy to calculate. Even round numbers for us JDs. Hopefully this production will get wrapped up promptly. Is there anything further today? No, ma'am. Thank you, Your Honor. Anything further from Twitter? No, Your Honor. All right. Hopefully I won't see you all again. Get out. I'll just wait for your submissions and we'll assess the fines and let you know from there. And whereupon the proceeding concludes. So this is what they discussed in the courtroom on the very last day. Twitter did, in fact, produce everything to them. They were, in fact, fined $350,000 for being late. So now what is really kind of crazy in all of this is, so the judge, what's her face? Beryl Howell, right? She's the one who signed this warrant to, hold on, let me stop sharing this so I can share this other thing. She's the one who signed this warrant to get the information for all of these Twitter users, right? Anybody who in any way, shape, or form has written about, heckled Trump, thought about Trump, anyone who in any way, shape, or form has put Trump in their tweets. She is the one who said, oh yeah, sure, give the FBI a list of these people, right? Keep that in mind. So now we have this article. Judge key to January 6th case warns U.S. faces authoritarian threat. Judge Beryl Howell, that's her right there, sees time of testing for nation as facts are denied and disputed. All right, so there she is, peach of a gal. So basically they're saying that she's warning that and saying that, you know, the storming of the Capitol on January 6th blamed the event on big lies and warned that the country is in danger of turning towards authoritarianism. So basically she's saying because of Donald Trump and his big lies, that if he comes back, we're headed towards an authoritarian government. Isn't that fascinating? The judge who signed a warrant stating that all of your information could go to the FBI and they can make a list of all you people that, oh, better be careful. Donald Trump will make this an authoritarian government. It's unbelievable. The hypocrisy runs deep, my friends. It absolutely does. So, yeah, that's where we're at with that. Let's see. Okay, so let's see what you guys have to say. Thank you so much, Mindfork, for the super sticker. Isn't that lovely? Thank you so much. Love that you're here. Thank you, Dorothy. Nice to see you're back, Lynn. Thank you. Nice to see you here, Dorothy. And thank you so much for putting it out into the, so I guess we don't call it Twitterverse anymore, right? Is it the Xverse? And letting everybody know that we're going to be here. Let's see if anybody, I'll see if I can go back and find any questions. Hectic Stargazer, Cindy. Hey, Cindy. Geez, a person could end up on a list that you have no idea of. Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, most people are probably on that list because, like I said, in the warrant, even if you muted the notifications for Donald Trump, you too are on the list. So if you blocked him, muted him, retweeted saying, can you believe this guy? You're on the list. So imagine how many millions of Americans are on that list right now. Personally, I like the term that someone put up today, Twix. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, it's, the judge had a point, though, based on what he says. I am going to disagree heartily on that one. I think, and again, you know, we all have differing political opinions, but I think right now the Democrats are just king on authoritarianism. It's kind of startling, the things that they're blatantly doing. But I mean, that's definitely something else that we can get into a little bit more. To the FBI night gazer. Hey, night gazer, to the FBI watching this chat. I hate Trump. He's a lousy guy. He probably drives slow in the left lane on the freeway. I don't know about his driving. But I'll tell you, the more and more that I am watching these court cases, the more and more I agree with Donald Trump. And we can get into those a bit more, and you know, I can explain why I think that. And it's a little bit crazy. Yeah. The DNC just voted to appoint Biden as the only candidate skipping the primary. Oh, right. Well, that's a bit authoritarian, I would say. Yeah. Cindy says both parties are corrupt, there's no doubt, but his rhetoric is scary. His rhetoric is, he has the, you know, he's Donald Trump. Any of us who've watched The Apprentice, which I used to love that show, but he's just very dramatic. He has a very theatrical type of way of speaking. And I think too often the Democrat Party will take what he says and twist it and make it it's a very concrete interpretation of it. But I don't know that that's necessarily the way that he always means it. Now, granted, I am not him, and other people are going to have differing opinions, but that's just how I take it. Hellfire Studios, hey, welcome back, Linny McLinster. Hey, thank you so much, and thank you so much for the super chat. That is so kind of you guys. So yeah, it's an interesting time. It is a really, really interesting time. What is Dorothy saying? When I went into public school teaching, the admins had everyone's fingerprints taken with the police. That was 1988. I know. That's pretty crazy to think about, isn't it? Let's see. Dorothy saying, hey, Cindy, I've known about this for a long time. We've all been under surveillance for quite a while now, years, in fact. Yeah, that is absolutely, absolutely true. What is Cindy saying? After hearing all this, why bother using social media when you can wind up on a list for a prosecutor? That's true. I mean, that's the scary part of this all. What? Right? I mean, you can. And that's why I say that the Democratic Party is like king on being authoritarian. I mean, king on being authoritarianism. But they're putting people on a list simply for following someone or muting someone. Even it's absolutely it is mind-blowing, like how blatant it is at this point in time. It is absolutely crazy. Let's see what else. Maybe, what is Helen saying? Maybe everyone who believes in free speech should literally post the word Trump and flood. Yeah, I know. Wouldn't that be interesting? And they already gave them the info. Now, I mean, I'm assuming they're still going to be monitoring it. But yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Hatch 61 says, oh, I'm certainly on the list. I think most people on Twitter are going to be on that list. Like, unless you have, I mean, like I said, even if you've unfollowed him or followed him, unfollowed him, muted him, blocked him, even mentioned him in your tweets and at any time. Like, how many millions of people do you think are on this list? It really is just mind-boggling. Night Gazer says, when everyone is forced to use digital currency, they'll just merge the list with your money. That's the scary thing, right? And right now they are all headed in that direction. And that's what gets really scary to me about digital currency, is that they can just shut you off from your bank account for whatever reason. Let's see, if you've ever even gotten close to any demonstration in Wisconsin, you're on the list. It's absolutely, it's crazy. This is why I say, like, the fact that the judge was saying we're moving towards authoritarianism, we are already there. We are in the midst of it. It sounds like people that hate him will be on the list too. They will. That's the thing. If you've muted him, you're on that list. If you've blocked him, you are also on that list. Again, if you retweeted one of his tweets and said, can you believe this moron? If that's like what you were thinking, you're on the list. I think most of us are all on the list. We are there. We are there, Dave Hurley. We are in authoritarianism land. Chris is back. She was on the phone. Welcome back. Welcome back. XJ says, I'm all cash. Deposit for bills. Yes. It's tough to be all cash. I mean, they make it nearly impossible, don't they, to be all cash these days? But it's absolutely, yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know. Dorothy says, and that sounds authoritarianism on both sides. Yeah. Cash is king, Night Gazer said. Yep, we are on every list. Yeah, on this show, we are on every list. Yeah. Some businesses, Dave Hurley says, some businesses won't take cash anymore. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, they're going to make it more and more impossible for us to use cash, right? They're going to basically just steer us in the direction that they want us to go. Oopsie, sorry. I was trying to remove that, but yeah, they're going to make it impossible. So I don't know what we can really do about that at this point. I think we're all kind of screwed in that. So what we really need to do, I guess, is just watch the government and try to do what we can to influence the way they go about handling these things. But I don't know. I don't know that there's much we can really do. I'm glad we all have each other over here. Oh, I'm glad we have each other over here too. Oh, I'm no longer relatable to coworkers or normies in general. Thanks, ufology. I think more people are coming around to talking about UFOs now that they've been, talking about it like publicly on the news and in Congress even. I mean, it's definitely gotten much more acceptable than it ever used to be. Where's this Dave Hurley guy? I got a bone to pick. Well, kidding. See, Dorothy saying, when you live inside of a man-made institution, you're subject to running afoul of somebody somewhere. LOL. That is true. That is absolutely true. We can't make everybody happy, right? It's absolutely true. Well, I think that's it, unless you guys have any other questions. I didn't see any. I should have asked you to put them in all caps, but I totally forgot to do that. But I was looking to see if I saw any, which I don't think that I did. So if anybody has any questions, put them in there now. But other than that, we will call it a wrap. Let's see. I'm just going to scroll through one last time just to see if I can find any questions. Oh, hi, Diane. How are you? Hi, Nathan. I don't know if I said hi to you, but I saw you too. It's real. There's a lot to process about it. Modern occultism. I think, let's see, new comments. Dave's got a guitar to pick. When's your next show? Definitely next week. I will be doing a show. I'm not sure. I'm still kind of like playing around with the days and times. I want to get to a point where I can do probably at least 2 shows a week. But definitely at least one for now. I will give you guys a heads up before. and let you know exactly when it's going to be, what day and time. But yeah, definitely next week we'll do something else. Hatch 61, thanks for the video, Lynn. Always enlightening and entertaining. Thank you so much. Diane, good to see you, Lynn. It's good to see you too, Diane. Yay, Lynn, coming back all the time. I want to do my best. I will do my best. There's just so much going on. We got to talk about it all. Oh, cool. Cindy says weekly is cool. And I am going to get in touch with you, Cindy, so we can chat. So yeah, so that's it. So right now, you know, the kind of shows that I want to do like today are going to require a little more research. So that's why I'm saying at this point, 1 a week. But hopefully at some point more than one. So it just depends. I might need to like see if I can get some help with research or something along those lines, so that we can, if I can get help with research, I can do more than one show a week. But yeah, so right now we'll go with 1 a week for sure. Oh, thank you, Helen. Love you too. What about Caitlin? Caitlin. I know. Caitlin's busy working. I know she was looking for a new job. She and I haven't talked much in the past like month or two, I think. But yeah, I'm not sure. We'll have to see where that's going to go. But for sure, I will definitely be back and do a show. Stay political. You're already on the list. Oh, definitely. I'm on the list with the things that I watch and talk about. I'm definitely on the list for sure. And yeah, I like talking politics. So I am happy to do that. And I love that we can talk, even if we don't all agree, that we can still be respectful. And I hope we can continue along that way of doing things. And thank you so much, Cindy. Hit that thumbs up before you leave. Love you too, Chris. We both love you too. Log into 4channel for research. Okay, or 4chan for research. I'll take a look at that. Thank you, XJ. All right, so I think that's going to be it for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm so happy that I got to see you. Thank you again for all of the super chats and super stickers, and for all of the love and support that you guys have always shown me. I appreciate it so much. And I will definitely be back next week. I will let you know. I'll put it in the, I'm going to try and be better about putting it in the community section to let you know when I'm going to be doing things. Yes, I agree, Night Gazer. I'm going to put this up because I agree with you. Sucks that we're being watched for just exercising our First Amendment rights. That is definitely something we are going to be talking about more. So yes, we have several of our constitutional rights that are being just destroyed. So we're going to talk about it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Much love to you all. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye.
Lay you down on the softly spoken words and notions that delight, but you're right down the path I know too well. You're right. You're in my head, there's a picture of me finding who I am and who I should be. I've lost myself in the insanity. I know now I'm finally free. Slow me down, though the past is broken. Hope has opened a new bright, but you're right down the path I know too well. You're right, but in my head there's a picture of me finding who I am and who I should be. I've lost myself in the insanity. I don't wanna live now, I'm finally free. But in my head there's a picture of me finding who I am and who I should be. I've lost myself in the insanity. Now I'm finally free. I'm out on a limb. And in my head I'm out on a limb. And in my head I'm out on a limb. And in my myself